Welcome to the Alpha Human Podcast. I'm your host, Lawrence Rosenberg, and today's guest is Ryan Hendrickson, a former U.S. Army Green Beret and the founder of Tip of the Spear Landmine Removal. Ryan's career spans across three branches of the military: Navy, Air Force, and ultimately the Army, where he became a Green Beret with 7th Special Forces Group. Ryan served 6 combat deployments to Afghanistan, multiple deployments to Iraq, South and Central America, and later returned to Afghanistan as a contractor, with his final deployment being the U.S. withdrawal from the country in 2021. In 2010, during his first deployment to Afghanistan, Ryan's mission to secure a village ended when he stepped on an IED, a blast that nearly took his leg and his life. And after 28 surgeries and 18 months of rehab, he defied the odds, fighting his way back to full combat duty and deploying 7 more times. Ryan earned the Silver Star, 4 Bronze Stars, a Purple Heart, and the Major General Robert T. Frederick Award, an honor given to only one U.S. Special Forces soldier every year. But Ryan's fight didn't stop there. In 2022, after witnessing the devastating impact of landmines on civilians in Ukraine following Russia's invasion, he founded Tip of the Spear Landmine Removal, a nonprofit dedicated to clearing explosive hazards and training locals in how to demine their war-torn communities. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's one hell of an intro. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for doing the show. God bless you. Thank you for your service. From the bottom of my heart, I read your book, and it resonates. It made an impact, and I love that it reads authentically in your voice. The book is called Tip of the Spear. I encourage everyone out there to check it out, to go get it. It just speak it in your voice. It comes through as you speaking from the heart in a way everyone can relate to. And no matter how many struggles you encountered in your story, you somehow managed to operate at an elite level in the most high risk, high stakes environments in the world. So it is a powerful story. And what I'd like to do in this conversation is pull out moments from your journey and really dive into your thoughts, your mindset, the psychology it takes to operate at the level you've been able to muster, kind of get your insights, your perspective, and how you process events and actions and people, because you're clearly a very unique individual that has managed to continue to not only overcome challenges, but to find meaning and purpose and which is, I think, the hardest thing for people to do in this life. And
Yep.
then on top of that, make a positive impact on the world along the way. How does that sound as a framework for this conversation?
Yeah, that's absolutely. I would probably say I'm not really a unique individual. I just kind of found out what works for me. And I want to spread, that message with as many people as I can, because as you said, so many people are suffering with lack of purpose. And we'll get into it more, but that lack of purpose, it kind of drives this entitlement victimization mindset, which is, I mean, at that point in time, life is running you. You're not running life. And I know this from experience. So,
Yeah, I think that's probably the most difficult challenge people face is finding meaning, finding purpose in their lives, and it's why I think there's so much self-destruction in the world that people bring upon themselves, because everyone's just and that actually is what's unique about you in many ways, that you found your groove. You found it's not easy for people to find their groove. We get forced into things, and next thing you know, you're just on the hamster wheel of life, and you're
yep.
just trying to survive. And you're never really thinking about, how do I get off of this to truly do something that I'm passionate about and that will resonate and leave a mark on this world. So, all right. So I think we got a way to kind of dive into your story, your journey, your all the accomplishments that you've had and the challenges that you face. So I'm going to start with
Yeah.
the book, and we'll kind of explore your the way you've navigated your life and really start to maybe analyze or get a sense of, hey, where was it that you managed to kind of get yourself out of the psychological prison you may have been in, or the barriers that you faced, because you faced a lot. So in the book you mentioned that you were primarily raised by your dad
Mhm.
after your mom, who struggled with addiction, left you when you were very young. Your dad was a Vietnam veteran who served as an aviation crew chief and experienced the horrors of war as an M60 door gunner. Uh,
Mhm.
After returning home, he worked as a logger, but when the logging industry collapsed, he faced significant hardships, turned to heavy drinking, and he spiraled into a dark place. And at one point, while contemplating suicide, he had a
Mhm.
life-changing encounter with a pastor in the middle of nowhere who gave him a message of hope and faith, and he found salvation in Jesus Christ through that encounter. Went on
Yep.
to went on to attend Bible college and eventually became a preacher. And
Mhm.
you recount a powerful moment. I think when your half sister Chris called you years later and was shocked to learn that your father had become a pastor, even questioning, like, how could a man who was so bad be a pastor now? And so, with that background, I'd love to understand, what impact did this transformation that your dad went through, what impact did
Mhm.
that have on you growing up?
Yeah, that's so it was kind of it was the extremes of both ways. And so in the beginning, my dad was still trying to figure out faith, and he was trying to figure out, you know, how do I this new journey that I'm on in life, how do I do this? And so some of the pitfalls that he ran into early on was he was trying to undo everything he did in the past. And that's an impossible thing. And I see that in a lot of people today. They want to undo what they did in the past, but the past is done. There's nothing you can do about it. And so, kind of leaping forward a little bit, but we'll trail back.
Hmm.
A message my dad gave me, when I was in the hospital, after stepping on an IED. Um, the message that my dad gave me was basically, there's two choices that you have in life. Um, Number one is you can let your experiences in your past and all the bad things that have happened to you, you can let this become you. And what's going to happen is you're going to push everybody away from you, and you're going to seclude yourself, and you're going to just be a bitter, angry person, and you're going to be a victim of your own circumstance. And because of that, not only are you a victim, but you're also entitled. You have this entitlement mindset that, well, I've gone through all this, I deserve this, or people should know this, or whatnot. And then you become a victim. You become victimized when you don't get, the feedback that is impossible to get. Victimization and entitlement, that void, it can never be filled. I mean, look at the news today. Look at what our youth are going through today: loss of identity, victimization, and entitlement. And you can't fill that void. The only thing you can do with that void is find a higher purpose. And so he said, path number one is the easiest, and it's what most people do. They become a victim of their past. Their identity is their past, and they never move on from it. And because of that, no one can ever relate to you. No one can ever get close to you. And you are going to be lonely. And if you survive to be an old man or woman, you're going to be lonely, bitter, and you would have let life pass you by. Life ran you. You did not run life. Or you can understand that bad things have happened in your life, whether they were self-induced, you did them, or someone else did them to you. Bad things happen in life. It's life. Life is, we need a whole lesson for our youth on how tough life is.
Mm.
Life is not easy, and it beats you down. But you can use those lessons, and you can use those experiences to make yourself stronger, to help other people. Don't make yourself stronger for yourself. Make yourself stronger to help other people and to do your part to make this world just a little bit better than when you were here. Or when you leave the world, you left the world just a little bit better. And so those are the two choices, my dad had, I have, and millions of people have. You have those two choices: either become a victim of your circumstance, or use those experiences and things that happened to you in the past to make yourself stronger to help other people. And when he kind of, once I started, it's not like he said that to me and it's like, I'm levitating off the bed and, life has changed forever. And no. I'm constantly beat. I'm my own worst enemy and I battle with it every day, but that's life, and I've come to a point in my life to where regardless of, everything, the intro that you gave me and everything like that, in the end, doesn't do anything for anybody else. You're not putting food on the table, you're not paying bills, and you're not making anybody else's life easier. It's a message, but you have to be willing to do it yourself and to put in the work. And then over time, it becomes a habit.
Mm.
And then once you form that habit, it's not saying life is going to be easy after that. It's not. It actually, in some ways, it actually gets harder because being a victim is very easy. That's the easy route in life. And letting life run you, that's easy. You just left, right, left through life and do nothing. Simple. But taking control of your life and taking control over your past and the things that you've done and that have been done to you, and using them to help, using those experiences, turning them into a positive to help other people, that's hard.
Mm.
That's extremely hard, but that's fulfillment. That's purpose. And that's what, in my humble opinion, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's a powerful lesson to learn from what your dad went through and what he passed on to you. As a logger and a pastor, your dad moved around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Ultimately, your dad settled in, I think it was Lowell, Oregon, giving you a chance to attend high school and kind of establish some stability for
Mm-hmm.
yourself and the family. And you said at Lowell High, you threw yourself into football and wrestling, and you earned a reputation as the toughest kid your coaches had ever trained. So why do you think you gave everything you had to those programs? Like, what was it about not quitting that resonated so deeply with you?
I think so. Number one, I had the best wrestling coach and mentor next to my dad. Jerry Dilly is um, he's just a incredible man that he mentors. He uses wrestling, but he uses that to build men
Mm.
and people that take responsibility for their actions, people that understand. Look, I wasn't good. I wouldn't quit, but I wasn't good. And and going through, not having an identity as a child because we moved around everywhere. I consider Lowell, Oregon my hometown because I lived there for 5 years. And so that's the longest I ever lived anywhere as a kid. And so that's my hometown. That's where I claim and I love Lowell. That's my hometown.
Mm.
But wrestling and football and all that stuff, no, I wasn't good at all. But um, regardless of all of that, it did create this mental toughness and the understanding, especially in wrestling. When you get beat, and nobody owes you anything. You lost. There is wrestling still to this day. Thankfully, there is no participation trophy. You win or you lose. But learning how to deal with loss at a young age, even if it's just sports, learning how to deal with loss at a young age is so important to the development of young men and women because they understand that nothing's free. When you lose, but you can also use those losses to make yourself better for the next time. That's what life is about. Is it's constantly falling flat on your face, getting bloodied up,
Mm.
dusting yourself off, and figuring out what went wrong, training harder so you don't do that same thing again, and then you start to win. And then again, life will come in, knock your feet right out from underneath you, You pick yourself up, you learn the lessons from that, train hard, make yourself stronger, and then keep going through life. And people may listen to it and be like, "Man, that's his life sucked for him." Doesn't, because without challenges and without goals and without aspirations and actually challenging yourself, if you literally actually challenge yourself, then there's a very good possibility you can lose, or you can
Mm,
fail,
that's right.
or you cannot achieve what you set out to do. But how boring is life for the people that never step out of their comfort zone? The people that only do things they know they're going to succeed at. They never step out of their comfort zone. You're going to get to a certain age where you're going to look back and you're going to realize you did nothing.
Yeah.
Some of the most successful people in the world have failed more than they've succeeded. And that's the lessons that I got, and why I kind of, it really meant a lot to me, as a kid that, had no identity, had, you know, really nothing to call my own besides, I've been in this town for 5 years, so this is my hometown. But yeah, it's that, looking back now, I can see why it was so impactful for me.
Mm,
Because it's the lessons that you learn from it, and it's how, in you could, especially in wrestling, you're going to get tougher, you're going to get harder, you're going to get stronger, and you get those traits, or you learn how to work through the defeats to then succeed.
mm.
And so that's what it is for me, and that's why I think all kids should be in some sort of team sport, teamwork, learning how to compete, learning how to lose. That's
Wow.
huge. Learn how to lose. Kids these days don't understand losing. Doesn't make sense to them.
Yep. Yep. And
Learning how to lose is the best teacher and the best motivator and molding of a person, in my opinion, is defeat. And I use the word failure. A lot of people think failure is this bad word. It's not, if
mm,
you use it correctly. Failing at something, then taking the lessons from it, turning around and making yourself bigger, better, stronger, faster to help other people or to do better the next time. How is failure bad?
yeah. That's the thing. There's, I don't know, as much as your father had those ups and downs, he experienced life to the fullest, and he kind of passed that on to you. He actually, in the book, you talk about how he encouraged you to join the military to avoid getting trapped in small town life. And he, I think one of his quotes, which I love, and you kind of alluded to it, but he said to you, he said, you should set the rules for your life, not let life set the rules for you.
Mhm.
Which is just, I mean, that's an awesome quote. And, you know,
Hard to implement. Hard to
not right.
implement, but it's the truth.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, it takes a long time for, I mean, without a mentor, someone really kind of guiding you, that's a hard thing to learn. And most people never learn it. But you ended up joining the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And you were actually, which is wild. You were actually part of the rescue and recovery efforts for the USS Cole when it was, after it was attacked.
Yep.
And then, you came out of the Navy. I think after your first 4 years, you came out and you returned as a civilian, but you were like, you found civilian life very unfulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
You said it wasn't the right fit for you. In your mind, you had a higher calling, a bigger purpose. You weren't sure what that was, but you knew something was out there for you. And
Mm-hmm.
you talked about how you had it while you were in the Navy, you kind of turned into a man who could only be fed by excitement and adventure. Uh, and that was
Adrenaline.
some right. And that was something you said, you needed that. You needed a fair amount of risk. Plus, you also needed a sense of belonging. And so I think, I'm wondering, what was it that you connected adventure and risk to when it came to fulfillment and identity?
I think, man, that's a good question. Adventure and risk. I mean, there's, just so. let's go back to sports a little bit and wrestling,
Okay.
especially, or football and wrestling. The adrenaline, the competitiveness, the team aspect of it. That really, in just a quick amount of time, 5 years, that really shaped, who I was as a young man. So fast forward into my time in the military, that didn't change. It kind of, as I started to get older and I started to see the world, especially through the Navy. I got out before 9/11, but the period that I joined, 97 to April 2001, there was really nothing going on in the world. And so I was doing everything that the recruiter said. We were going to, tons of foreign ports. I was seeing new cultures, new people, different ways of life and stuff like that. So what the Navy did was it expanded my mind, kind of like what my dad said. You
Hmm.
have to leave this little town. You're joining the military because if I let you stay, you're never going to leave. And you're going to be talking about your senior uh, year homecoming football game while you're pumping gas at the gas station at 35 years old. And it's like, wow, I don't want that. But what he was driving for was to get me that real world experience. The world is a lot bigger than Lowell, Oregon,
Hmm.
1,500 people. And the world's a lot bigger than that. You have to get out and you have to experience it. And the military will not only provide you the opportunity to experience, but they're going to make you experience it because you are going to travel the world. This is what the military does.
Right.
And so you're going to get your eyes opened up. And then after 4 years, once you've served your country and you have the experiences that you're going to get from the military, then you can come back and figure out life from there. But go do 4 years, go serve your country, get your mind expanded, and go from there. And so when I'm looking at what kind of led to the adrenaline and the life that I've lived from there, I think it all started off from the very beginning, just as a child, moving town to town to town. Things were always different. Things were always changing. There was always this rush of change, and I'm always doing these extreme things as a kid. And then wrestling and football kind of honed it in with, okay, this is not necessarily a healthy way to vent or to experience this, but this is another facet of it, and teamwork and everything else. And then the military, all the opportunities you have in the military, or I had in the military, it only led to more doors that I could walk through to continue on what I think was already a part of me since the very beginning, and that's adventure and excitement and adrenaline.
Yeah. Well, um, I mean, you certainly had your fill of that. And
Mm-hmm.
when you were so as you said, nothing much was happening in the way of of war or chaos between those years, and you came out, but you stayed in Navy. You were a Navy reservist,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of civilian life isn't for you, but so you're in the mix a little bit, but then 9/11 happens, and in the aftermath of those attacks, you feel this urge. I think you said you felt an agonizing urge to do your part and
Mm-hmm.
join the war on terror, but you were also in a marriage. You were trying to save the marriage, but an opportunity did present itself, which was you had the chance to attend Buds, which
Mm-hmm.
is that's the gateway to becoming a Navy SEAL.
Mm-hmm.
And being part of an elite unit was something you talk about wanting with it with every inch of your being. That's your quote. And so you gave it everything that you had. And for the
Mm-hmm.
first time in your life, you experienced a major setback where you
Mm-hmm.
actually push for something and it didn't happen. After 3 months of the nonstop beating that your body takes at Buds, along with long stretches of being wet, cold, miserable, no time to recover, you ended up with a leg injury, severe pneumonia, and prevented you from continuing, and you got dropped. And you said the disappointment was absolutely crushing. So
Mm-hmm.
at that time, given your mindset, like how did you handle that?
So I'll correct one thing. I didn't necessarily get dropped. They offered me a medical recycle back
Okay.
to day one, and I said no.
Ah,
It was that's what impacted me the most was the
interesting.
fact that I had the opportunity to continue and I gave up on myself.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mhm. So that's the big difference there was getting hurt happens to nobody goes through buds without getting hurt. It's one of the toughest training pipelines in the world. And it's you're gonna go through you know a lot a lot of crap to be standing at the end.
Hmm.
Um, but no, what affected me the most was I think we were day two rolling into day three of Hell Week,
Hmm.
and they were like, look, no, you're pulmonary edema, a couple other things, so we're going to recycle you back to day one. And in that brief moment, standing there soaking wet, coughing, everything up and everything like that, I just said, I'm not going back to day one.
Wow.
And so that's actually what I think caused a lot of the mental torment with me was because I gave up on myself. I
Wow.
didn't even I didn't even give myself a chance to go back to day one and redo it all over again. I just said no, I'm done. And that really led to quite a bit of mental issues that I had because I'd never been in that position before.
Right.
That's the one and only time I've ever, set my mind to do something and fell short of it because, and I became a victim of it. Poor me, my leg, why did this happen? Why, pneumonia? Why did it's like join the crowd, man. Everybody here has pneumonia, but I really became a victim of it. And I allowed it to start to change who I was. I'm a failure. I'm a loser. I'm filling all the blanks. And then I started to really believe that, and then masking it with drinking and everything like that. And so, um, in the end, fast forwarding years later, that was 2002.
Right.
Fast forwarding years later, when I finally was like, hey, I need to use these negative experiences in my life to make myself stronger. Well, that incident that day in Hell Week was probably the best lesson and tool and motivator I had for the rest of my life. It
Wow.
set me up for everything that I have done since then. And what I mean by that is whenever I would come to that point mentally, because everybody gets there. I understood that number one, I'm not going to die. Number two, nobody's chasing me or trying to kill me. So take a second, relax, look at the situation for what it really is. It's a training course, nothing more. Like clear head, do it all over again. Nothing more. Take it for what it is, clearly look at the situation, and then make an educated decision off that, not a decision based on pain or suffering or a decision based on how you feel at that moment, or I guess they would call it a knee-jerk reaction. Because chances are you're going to make the wrong decision because our emotions definitely can sabotage us 100%. And it clouds your brain, it clouds your thinking, and it makes you make decisions that you normally wouldn't do. Kind of like alcohol, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But it makes you make decisions that you normally wouldn't have if you had a clear head and you were focused.
You
And
know,
so it's a setback. That's all it is. It's a setback. But the choices I made that day haunted me for so long because I felt like a loser and a failure and everything else until I finally realized that that was one of the greatest lessons that I ever learned because I started to use that for what it actually was. And that was one of the greatest teaching points I had in my life was that day in Buds or that night, Buds.
this is real, so that, first of all, thank you for making that point that you actually had the chance to start over again.
Oh yeah.
And, maybe it was pride, maybe it was like, I'm just not, if I'm not making it now, then forget, you know, and when we're younger, we're rash, like we're just like, you
Hmm.
know, but what's really powerful about that is when you talk about the victim mindset, unlike a lot of other people who are looking outside looking in and saying, oh, you're just playing the victim, you actually were that person. You were that victim. You were,
Hmm.
oh, why did I fail? Why wasn't I good enough? Oh, it's because, I grew up in a broken home. It's because, the
Hmm.
world's against me. Like you were actually that. You suffered through that mindset, but you managed to pull yourself out of it. So when you speak about it, you're speaking to it from a place of authenticity and genuineness because you know what it's like to be there. And I think that has a lot more impact. It gives what you're talking about credibility, and hopefully others can, through your example, kind of see, hey, wait a second, there's a better way.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, Yeah, I mean that's powerful. Although you didn't make it into the SEALs, that didn't dampen your yearning, to contribute meaningfully, and to get into that fight,
Hmm.
and be part of the war against terrorism after 9/11. Like you wanted a piece of it. So, you did get the bit between your teeth, and that's when you joined the Air Force.
Hmm.
And you kind of said you found camaraderie and a sense of impact as an ammo troop in Iraq and Afghanistan. But there was a point where you talk about in the book how during your deployment to Kirkuk, you encountered the Green Berets for the first time. And you
Hmm.
said you were kind of fascinated by their independence, their adaptability, their unconventional approach to warfare, and you began working out with some of these guys in the gym,
Hmm.
and you were like soaking in their stories, their energy, and it kind of sparked a new vision for what you wanted to achieve. So, what drew you to the Green Berets? What was it about their mission and their approach that kind of inspired you?
So I'll back up a little bit. The decision on the Air Force was a marriage decision, and
Okay.
my time I spent in the Air Force was amazing. I have lifelong friends from it. I had an amazing job, but my ex-wife, good woman, she was in the Army getting out, and we decided that, hey, look, Army life isn't for her. She doesn't want to be an Army spouse, or whatever it was. But that's where the decision on the Air Force came, because listeners may be like, well, why didn't you just go right into the Army in 2003,
Hmm.
or yeah, 2003, instead of Air Force and then over to the Army? And so it was a decision that we made. And again, after my time in the Navy, I was not a good person. I was drinking a lot and I was doing things that married men should not be doing. And again, my ex-wife put up with me way more than she should have.
Mm.
No person should have to put up with what I put her through. And she's an amazing person. And I just, yeah, I learned lessons from it, but I'm still a human being. And I look back now, and it's just, nobody should have to go through the torment that I inflicted on her in our marriage. But one of the decisions when I was trying to, like, let's make this work, let's make this happen, and it was okay, all right, well, Air Force it is. And again, I'm so proud of my time in the Air Force, but something was always missing. And so in Iraq, there was a couple ODA teams at our base, Operational Detachment Alpha, Special Forces teams at our base, and we'd constantly be watching them go, in and out of base. They're bearded up. They'd come back just grizzly, dirty, and everything like that. And we'd all stand around, kind of talking about what we thought we knew. It's like, I got a friend that has a cousin that has a brother that has an aunt that has an uncle that knows a Green Beret. I think maybe he was a Green Beret. I don't know. And so we'd all, it was very fascinating. But my dad in Vietnam was he was a support, so he was on medevac helicopters, Hueys, and he was the support element for MACV SOG.
Oh,
And so he knew the special forces world very well, and he always talked very highly of Green Berets, but it wasn't as known as the Navy SEALs.
yep.
Um, and so it was kind of still one of those like the green who's like what are you like special forces? Everybody's special forces. They're not. There's only one special forces. There's U.S. Army Special Forces, Green Berets. Everybody else is special operations. But and so being on a base with them, and then finally, like I don't even remember what. I think one of the guys asked me, if I could spot him one time on bench,
Hmm.
and that just kind of was the icebreaker and opened it up. But we just kept talking all the time, and he was like, yeah, in our company, there's another guy that he transferred over from the Air Force. Yeah, he's a Green Beret now. He used to be in the Air Force, and now he transferred over. And I was like, oh, that's a thing. Like,
Mm.
yeah, we got a guy that did it. Yeah, I don't know where he's at. He's probably Baghdad or something like that. But yeah, he transferred over, and so that really got the wheels in my head kind of turning. And so from that point on, I really started to wonder, like, okay, here's something my dad's always talked about. We have, something that's actually like I'm meeting these guys. They're normal people. Um, and there's actually people that used to be in the Air Force that went over to them. So now that's kind of that connection right there that I have. And John Ram was a Green Beret. So,
That's right.
but 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 it just really, was fascinating to me and everything that they were doing. But it was still that team mentality that was the same from when I was a wrestler and when I was on a football team. And so I was actually being able to see this in person. Like these guys are like a sports team.
Mm.
I never had any interaction with SEAL platoons downrange until I was a Green Beret. And
Interesting.
so
Right.
I wasn't able to connect the dots. Whereas like these guys, this is like our wrestling team. These guys work out together, they eat together, they do everything together. They go out, they do awesome stuff. I was like, wow, this okay. And so that's what really planted that seed in my head. And then, when my ex-wife finally had enough, and again, God bless her, amazing woman, never should have had to put up with any of what she did, but
Mm.
not as much as she did. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
But when we finally got divorced, I was going to the personnel office. I think that's what the Air Force called it. It's like S1,
Okay.
to change my status over from married to single. And, that's going to, that affects, you know, everything from BH and all that, but you have to do it for military, service records and stuff. And I saw this poster on the wall, and it had a guy in uniform, and it was half Class A's and half dress blues, and it said "Go blue to green." The Air Force has overmanned um, AFSCs. I think AFSCs, I think is what it was called. Jobs. They have overmanned jobs, and if you are in some of these jobs, then you can qualify for a direct transfer over to the Army. And like I said, just coming off the divorce, um, had already wanted to go to the Army in 2002, um, and seeing, or 2003, 2002, 2003. Um, and now all of a sudden, here's this poster on the wall. So I just asked the question. I was like, hey, what's that? Is this a thing? And they looked at my job and they said, yeah, you're an overman career field. You can transfer over. Do you want more information on it? And so it just kind of went from there to Army recruiter. And then they had this program called the 18 X-ray program.
Mm.
And that was going basically from the street to the special forces training, which was a lot more than that. You got to go through infantry, jump school, all that other stuff, all the way before up to going to pre-selection, selection, and then if you get through that, then you got the whole Q course and you go from there. So
Right.
it wasn't this quick, like, wow, I'm in training now, I'm a Green Beret. Oh no, it was 2.5 years long.
Right.
But that's kind of that's what got that's kind of how all the pieces fell into place. Was number one, I just needed a win. I needed a victory. I was still victimized by what happened, at my time at Buds. I still victimized myself, and I still hadn't quite figured out how to use that defeat as a lesson to make myself stronger to succeed. That came in selection and the Q course when I looked back on, that night in Hell Week, and I was like, there's no way in hell I'm ever going back to that feeling again. And it was amazing. Like I actually used that as a tool to keep pushing on.
Mm.
But but yeah, it's what led up to everything was just a lot of circumstances, self-induced completely, that led to this poster on the wall.
Like you said, I think, and that was, that's what I was kind of searching for. That's what I was wondering. And I think you encapsulated because you said you needed a win. You
Mm-hmm.
needed a win. And you went for it. So I mean, that's inspiring, because a lot of people, they never get over the issue, right? The
Mm-hmm.
mistake. They never get over the past. They drown in it. And, you need a win, but you actually got to go for the win. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
circumstances, there was certainly your motivation to do something, and you kind of caught maybe some, a bit of headwind, right? To push you along the way, but get some wind behind your sails. But just actually uh, getting off the X, as they say, and going to make something happen. That's where the magic is. And so you went, and you start, kind of figuring out, okay, I'm in the army now, and now I have my mind on the prize. I want to become Green Beret, Army Special Forces. But you know, I think going from the Air Force over to Special Forces, it didn't give you a high chance of passing, uh, right, the 14 months or longer series of courses and training that you needed to become a Green Beret. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and your other consideration you said was that most of the guys trying out for Special Forces were coming from combat related jobs, right? Like infantry, ranger battalion. They had the basic weapon skills. They had the land navigation skills. So they came with a lot of experience, that you needed typically to even consider
Mm-hmm.
becoming an elite Green Beret. Um,
Oh
you
yeah.
you talked about how you would have to learn everything from the ground up, and not as a 20-year-old, like as a 29-year-old.
Yep.
And so here's what you said. You said the task looked nearly impossible to me.
Mm-hmm.
So believing that becoming a Green Beret was somewhat of an insurmountable challenge, how did you kind of cultivate the mindset to confront overwhelming odds like that? Like looking at it that way, you're like, wow, this looks nearly impossible. So, like, what is the leap that you have to make to pursue something that any person, if they're going to pursue something that seems beyond reach, like walk us through how someone transitions from feeling that way to kind of stepping up to the plate and taking the biggest swing of their life.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, and again, it's a lot more clear to me now than it was at the time.
Okay.
At the time when I was looking back on, my failures and, not being good enough to make it through, buds and all of that. What I didn't realize was, and I can see it now, but one of the best, or actually probably the only thing that can help you move on from defeat is trying something even harder and then continuing and continuing and continuing until you succeed. And so again, another great lesson, amazing lesson that I learned from what I thought was a failure. I'm a loser. I'm all this other stuff to being one of the best teaching moments and lessons of my life. It set me up for so many successes, but the successes come off of so many failures. But I don't fear failure anymore because I'm going to use it. I'm going to make myself stronger. But when I was looking at going into special forces, and I'm kind of, I'm self-sabotaging already. I'm looking
Mhm.
at it, I was like, all right, yeah, I grew up country boy, tromping around the woods, got it. But, I was in the Navy, and I didn't do a combat arms job. I was in the Air Force. I didn't do a combat arms job. I was like, I have zero qualifications for anything. Like, I am literally setting myself up for failure. Like, it's not when, it's not if, it's when I fail. But there's a message my dad gave, little talk to he gave me before. I want to say it was before I left for boot camp for the Navy.
Okay.
And he said, you live in life to your fullest. And he said, let me tell you a little story. So there's two old men sitting on their porch. The first old man, he's miserable. He's done nothing in his life. He only did things he knew he could succeed at. He only tried things that he knew that he would do. He never took risks. He never challenged himself. He always stayed in his comfort zone because he was too afraid of failure. And he did nothing. And as an old man, he was miserable. And he's looking back and he hated his life because he knew he let life pass him by. He did nothing with it except for what he knew that he would succeed at and what he was comfortable with. That's it. No challenges, no failures, nothing. He said, and that old man was miserable in his last days, hating life that he lived. Said, then there's the second old man sitting in his rocking chair on his porch, probably drinking a beer, just relaxed, enjoying life. He's done it all. He's failed multiple times. He's succeeded some. He's fell flat on his face. He's picked himself up. He's done everything that there was to do in life. He challenged himself. He was never in his comfort zone. He did everything that he knew that he could possibly do. Win, lose, or draw. He did it. And a lot of losses. But those wins were they were so great because of everything that he did to build himself up to that. He had no regrets. He's done it all. And he was sitting in this, rocking chair last days, and he was happy. He was fulfilled. He was content because he lived life. Life did not live him.
Mhm.
And so he said, which old man do you want to be? He said, if you don't try, you'll never know. And if you don't know, it's your own fault. It's because you didn't try. And so as I'm sitting at the recruiter's office, self-sabotaging, there's no way I qualify for this. This isn't going to happen. I'm setting myself up for failure. It then clicked in me. Who cares? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to give it everything I have. And I've already learned lessons from Hell Week
Mhm.
that if I'm not leaving until they tell me you're done, you're leaving, whether it's with the Green Beret or I'm not good enough, but I am giving it everything I have because in the end, as that old man, I don't want to sit there and wish I would have at least tried because I wish I would have. They're horrible when you get older because you let life pass you by. Everyone's going to have time to reflect on life. Everybody will. You don't have a choice. There's going to be a time in your life when you get to a certain age, you're going to sit back and you are going to either be happy or miserable because of the life you lived and the chances you took. And so I just said, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it and I'm going to give it everything I have. And in the end, if I'm not good enough, I know that I did my best and I will be happy with that because if everyone could be a Green Beret or a Navy SEAL, then they wouldn't be special, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody would be. But I'm going to give it everything I have because this is an experience. I'm going to have this experience. And I will sit on my rocking chair one day as an old man and I'll look back and say, at least you tried. I didn't have any other expectations than that. I had that, and I had the fact that I'll never go back to that day in Hell Week ever again. That's all I had. And signed the paperwork, the process started.
And it showed in the book, you could see like all of a sudden some boom, like the switch turned on and you you made it. I mean, you made it through selection, the Q course, you made it through Robin Sage, and and you said, look, um, you had what was it? I think 400 candidates who begin selection with you.
Mm-hmm.
55 advanced to the Q course. Of the
Mm-hmm.
400, only 55, so slightly over
Mm-hmm.
10%. And from that group, just 23 earned the Green Beret. And you were one of them. And you were talking about in reflecting on the mindset that kind of carried you through. I think there's a moment, I think, which encapsulates how that you went from like that, oh, I can't do it. Oh, this is stacked against me. You went from that kind of like victim mentality and that great advice from your dad, and then that switch turns on. You said there were times when times were hard and you needed to pull strength from somewhere, anywhere. You said that I don't know if it was maybe when it was Robin Sage or maybe not, but you said that you would see someone in the course, oh, in the Q course, sorry. You would see someone in the course who you thought had no business being there.
Mm-hmm.
And you would target them privately, for competition, right? You'd look at them and you'd be like, oh, no, 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 wait a second. So this guy ain't going to get past me. I'm going to be. Can you elaborate on a little bit of how that helped make you stronger and pull through? Because I think that a lot of people, there's a lot of ways you could take that template and garner strength and competitiveness to pull through
Mm-hmm.
something that's way outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, it could be kind of a sadistic or a messed up mindset that I had, but as I kept, especially through selection, I mean, 55 out of, I think it was 430.
Wow.
But 55 people selected. And then out of that, it was like 19 or 20 something of us actually made it all the way through to get our green brace. And so it was definitely, a very intense and it was hard. It was a hard course, but some of the strength that I would get kind of went back to wrestling. Like if I beat you, that would give me that confidence. And so when I'm going through selection specifically, because selection was horrible, very tough. But when I was going through the, selection and these different phases, um, I just remember as people would reach their end, their
Hmm.
breaking point, they would reach their second night of Hell Week and say, I'm done. I was able to kind of feed off of that and it wasn't feeding off of their failure.
Hmm.
It was reminding me that I was that guy
Oh,
just a few years ago and I'm not ever going back there. And so that was this constant reminder. Boom, well, there's another one. Wow, this guy, he has every single tab on his arm but the special forces tab. Why is he leaving? And I just kept feeding off that because it would bring me back to one of my greatest teaching moments of my life. And that's, Hell Week and that second night in Hell Week when I gave up on myself.
wow.
And
Yeah.
so that's what it was doing for me. I just kept bringing myself back to, nope, not going back there. That's not worth it. Keep pushing, Ryan. Keep pushing, Ryan.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. Like I don't wish failure on anybody.
Right. Right.
Unless well, depends. If someone needs a good kick in the ass to get them remotivated or to get their life back on the right direction, which we'll talk about in a minute with my
Hmm.
IED.
Hmm.
But some failure, failure is good. So it's not that I don't wish it on anybody.
Right.
Everybody needs to understand failure. I just every time I would see someone that I was just like, wow, why isn't this guy is Captain America? How is he? It just kept reminding me, and it kept bringing me back to 2002. Don't do that. Uh-uh.
Mm.
Switch and just keep going. And that's what it was doing for me. It just motivated me from my past failures to just keep going until they tell me I am not good enough and you have no choice but to leave. I'm going to be here. And that's what it did for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a powerful mindset. And like you said, I like the way you put it, I like the way you positioned it. You didn't want, you were kind of thinking yourself, hey, that was you at one time. You're never going to go back to being that. So you're a newly minted Green Beret, an 18C, an 18 Charlie,
Mm-hmm.
which is Special Forces Engineer Sergeant, I believe, responsible for
Mm-hmm.
carrying out demolition raids on enemy targets, constructing fortifications, conducting sweeps for landmines, IEDs. And I think when you deployed over for the first time, was it, I think, forward operating base TIX,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Tikes, that's even,
Yep.
um, and, I think so, yeah. So you're out there, you're getting ready for your first mission.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and here's a quote. I'm going to quote you here. You said, taking fire from the Taliban was a risk we all knew was possible. But the more likely scenario was experiencing a catastrophic IED explosion, resulting in loss of limbs and broken bodies. All the team members were fully aware that one wrong step could change their lives forever. My job was to make sure that that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So why why did this become your job, right? Like of all the jobs, like might be the last job a lot of people would take, for you to be the one out there. And it's such a meticulous, I mean, you described really well like the what you go through actually trying to clear landmines, IEDs, and be that person who has I mean this everyone, the responsibility of everyone relies on you finding this thing, and there's lots of them. Um, how did you get your head wrapped around? Hey, this is what I'm gonna do.
Well, in the very beginning, when I'm looking at all the jobs on an ODA team, you got, Bravo weapons expert, Echo, Commo, Delta, medical. When you're going through all the different jobs on an ODA, I'm a regular guy. 18 Charlie, you get to blow things up and destroy things with explosives. I was like, yeah, that's me too.
Right.
Yeah, that's me. So that's what, brought on, my wanting to be an 18 Charlie.
Okay.
And special forces engineer was demolitions. I may have some things wrong up in my head, definitely like huge bomb fires, and I like to see things blow up. I think it's cool.
There you go.
But also the added job when you're downrange, when
Uh-huh.
you're deployed in a combat environment, is you are the one responsible for the route being cleared to the objective for the assaulters or for whatever you guys are doing. If it's a clearance op, if you're assaulting a objective,
Mhm.
um, uh, raids, all kinds of stuff, you have to, like, your job is up in the front and you are clearing the route, usually with your Afghan or Iraqi counterparts, but you're up in the front and you're clearing the route for the main objective. For the guys that are coming in, they're going to do, and you're also a shooter because you're in the front. So,
Right.
you got you have your detectors and you also have your M4 and you're kind of exposed a little bit in the front. And so, which also the reason why the book is called Tip of the Spear. It's not that I'm special. It's the
Right.
fact that
You
that was
really
my
were.
job.
Right. You
and and so um but that was just kind of that was a duty of the 18 Charlie for an ODA team while deployed in a combat environment on combat operations, was to make sure that that route path or whatever it is is cleared of explosive hazards so the team can accomplish their job.
Hmm.
And we learned a little bit about it in the Charlie course. Nothing too in depth. We were more in depth on like foreign explosives, mines, and stuff like that. And then also the demolition portion brought
Hmm.
up most of the 18 Charlie course, which was demo, blowing stuff up and doing stuff. And then also, as you said, building, fortification, all this stuff. Everything that was really like interesting to me, especially growing up with my dad, helping him out with construction and everything like that. It just really, all of that stuff interests me. And it was a great fit. But coming to Afghanistan my first time, uh, no, I found the Afghans that they were called kayak at the time,
Hmm.
but they turned into the National Mine Reduction Group. But
Okay.
I found those. I've always had a philosophy about my who I surround myself with, and it could be laziness, but I try to surround myself with people that are bigger, better, faster, stronger, and smarter than I am.
Okay.
And so not only will that make me better, but it also makes my job a lot easier. And so I just I went to these Afghans and I was like, teach me everything. And Afghans know more about IEDs than anyone else in the world. And I don't
Mm.
want people to read into that. I'm not saying us because they were the ones putting it in.
Right.
They know more about IEDs and searching more than anybody else I've ever encountered in the world. They are the best. And so majority of my experiences and what I learned was actually on the ground.
Mm.
And I just kept reaching out to our Afghan counterparts. It's like, hey, let's go train. And it's not me training you. Let's do this together. We're going to share experiences. Ha, I have none, and you
Right.
have, so.
Right.
Um, but that's what actually it. That's what really that's what I loved about being a Green Beret. Um, a lot of people,
Interesting.
they look at special forces and special operations. It's Navy SEALs, Green Berets, MARSOC, Rangers, and all this stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, these guys kicking down doors and shooting people in the face and all this other stuff. That's not necessarily why I joined special forces. Green Berets are actually the best in the world at unconventional warfare, working by, with, and through the indigenous population. Train,
Wow.
advise, assist, force multiplication. Same thing I'm doing in Ukraine right now with deminers, not combat role, but with deminers.
Right.
Same thing. And that's the human domain, because going back to the Navy, going to all these different countries and seeing all these different people and their cultures and stuff like that, I was so fascinated and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Every place I
Wow.
went, I was like, this is my favorite place. And it
Wow.
was because of the people. I would get immersed as much as I possibly could into their cultures and just try to learn. And I was like, Green Berets, that's actually what that's a big part of our job, especially with, why we were even established in the first place. But John F. Kennedy was unconventional warfare, working by, with, and through force multiplication, and I loved it. And so now, I have these brothers, these Afghan brothers that we're all working together, and they're getting this American that's like, hey, help me, teach me. Let's do this together. Let's learn.
Mm.
I'm not coming in here telling you what to do. Let's do this together. I need to learn what you know. Why? Because it's going to keep my team safe, number one, and number two, it'll keep me safe.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's crazy, but I actually joined special forces for the unconventional warfare aspect of it. There's a lot of great shooters in the world. People are like, oh yeah, but if they'll ask me, it's like, okay, well, if that's your mindset on it, then when it comes to shooting and stuff like that, like what do you think? And I was like, Rangers, if you need an area completely destroyed and every single, they're like, go in here and just destroy, accomplish the mission. Rangers, all day, every day. And so, and I'm like, yeah, it's Green Berets. tons of amazing shooters. I'm not saying that's not,
Right.
but I joined for the unconventional warfare aspect of it. And that's what I got in Afghanistan. And I really did. It just fit me perfectly because people fascinate me. I want to know more about people. I want to talk to people and learn. And that's, kind of how it all worked out.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's the, everyone's, and that's why I love these conversations, because everyone sees things in black or white. They see an archetype and they make assumptions, but life is so much more complex and comprehensive, and people's motivations. So I love that, because at first sight you're like, wait a second, you chose to be out there, searching for the IDs, the landmine. I mean, this, right up front, right at the tip of the spear, and it's dangerous stuff, but it makes so much sense, fulfilling that need that you had. You also were asking yourself questions going into your first mission, going to combat for the first time. You were asking yourself in your mind, like, those primal questions about, when it all hits the fan, when it's kill or be killed, how will I react? Will I win? Like, what, like, those are
Mhm.
questions that you talk about in the book, having to face. And then, you're out there, you're in the Panjway, you're at the Alamo, which
Well,
is
to be honest, I think every young man used to have those questions, and it goes all the way back again to sports. Like I joined wrestling because I wanted to know if I was the best. I was not, but I mean, it goes
okay,
all the way back. You can
true,
go through countless history books where people have gone to war on a fact that they want to know how they would react when it hits the fan.
rite of passage,
And how will I react when somebody is trying to kill me? What will I do? I don't know if that mindset is so much prevalent now, but it used to be that where men wanted to know, and it could be wrong. I maybe in the comments people will shoot complete holes through it, but
I don't think
it
so.
used it used to be known. I want to go to war to see what war is about. How will I handle war? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why that is. I mean, I have beliefs because human beings are very good at war, and
Mhm.
it's kind of natural for us. But I think every young man, and I say young men because that's what I was when I was thinking all
Mhm.
this. I think every young man has this thought process, or had this thought process of how will I react? I mean, how many times has somebody sit back and like, I don't know how I would do in a fist fight. Never been in one before. Yeah. And then, somebody will go out and they'll train and they'll get all this training and stuff like that, but yet they've never actually been in a situation where, they would be in an actual fight. And I'm not saying people go out and
Right.
pick fights to see how you would act, but that thought process is there. When it comes down to the most basic human, I guess, instinct, which is, well, I don't know if it's basic, but, protection and fighting
Yes.
and war and stuff like that. Like, how will I act when this happens? And I had the same questions too.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I don't know if that's a question that's asked anymore, as much as I know. Let's say, this absolutely. I mean, these are
Mm-hmm.
questions. Yeah, how will I do in a fight? How will I handle myself on the streets? How will you handle yourself in war? You fantasize about becoming a Marine, or in your case, a Green, Navy SEAL, Green Beret. Um, and so these are primal questions, certainly, a lot, even, for my generation, on back, these were questions men asked of themselves. It's primal, it's primal. And so you certainly learned a lot about yourself, out there, and how you would act. Uh, and I think, it really culminates in how you handle, probably, um, the most devastating thing that could happen to anyone, which is, uh, you stepping on an IED. After 3 months of combat,
Mm-hmm.
your team, along with other ODAs, were tasked with entering the Chutu Valley,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you kind of you're going to enter it from different locations, clear out the Taliban to a central point, and on a mission to clear a village and the compounds within it, uh, you end up stepping on an IED. I love the way the book does this, by the way. You start off with the
Mhm.
story of that just about to happen, then you go into your life, and then you come back at some point in the book to what happens.
Mhm.
And I'll leave that for people to read because it's compelling. But you ended up as you're helping actually one of I think it's your interpreter
Mhm.
who's kind of like rushing to go into a compound, and you're like get away from the can't wait. And so you go to get him and bring him back, and as you're bringing him back,
Mhm.
step on this IED, and the explosion leaves you like severely, and your right foot was nearly severed. It's hanging by threads. You're in unimaginable pain. You thought you were going to die, and you said, so this is what I want to ask you. You said that you prayed harder than you had in years, asking for forgiveness for your sins. And amidst all of this, you suddenly felt a calm come over you, a peace that you couldn't explain. My question to you is this. I know your father became a pastor
Mhm.
and had his come to Jesus moment. Had you always had a strong faith in God up until that point?
No, God was definitely um, a genie in a bottle. Like, if I need you, come help me. But in the meantime, you're kind of hindrance because you're telling me all this stuff's wrong, but I like to do all this stuff. And so I'm going to do it. But if I need you, be there. And and so that's the reason why, I believe that that IED and that situation, the way it unfolded, and I've had a lot of people, kind of go through, different talks that I've had or the book, and they're like, you always equate things to God. What happens if things just happen? I was like, but I don't believe that. In my belief structure, that's not something that I believe. And so, you know, first of all, that the first compound that we were going to enter, we had been fighting in this village for 3 months.
Right.
I answered the question about how will I do when someone's trying to kill me, like day 3 in country. And so question answered, and now it's just kind of routine. And so we knew that um this is a bad place. And it was an entire company of Green Berets that we were clearing this valley, and we happened to be entering in from the southern part and pushing our way up to where the commandos were going to enter in at the central part, and then the teams from Firebase Cobra were moving north down. And so, um, you know, Nick going up to that compound, and it's still there's still nothing was happening, and that's a bad thing. Like getting into the village, zero signs of life, zero movement, no animals, nothing. That's a really really bad situation to be in, and we all knew it.
Mm,
And so him going down to that compound, what I was actually doing is he was our only interpreter, and we had 40 or 50 some odd militiamen with us,
mm,
Afghan militiamen. So if we can't communicate with them, I mean, there's zero you could do. And so, I went down to, and it's dark. It's nighttime, and I went down to the breach point on this compound that he was down there because our Afghan militiamen, they didn't want to go to the compound. They're like, no, it's too dangerous. It's like, I
right.
know, that's why we're here. Um, but he was down there trying to like an Afghan Rambo, like wave him in, and he's doing it quietly because it's still, noise and light discipline, even though the Taliban knew you're there. They don't. But our concern was that how was that compound was either they either had shooters just waiting for us,
Mhm.
or it could have even been a rigged compound, an HBID.
Right.
And so I went down to the breach point and I pulled him away from it, whispered in his ear some explicits, and then to move back to our location because we were like 15, 20 meters away from the breach point of the compound. And as I was standing there,
Mhm.
you never want to have your back or your sides exposed to the unknown.
Mhm.
So I turned to, basically be able to cover the courtyard because I
Mhm.
don't know who's in there. As Nick moved back, and then I'll make my way back, and then we'll readjust and go again.
Right.
Well, I see something move out of the corner of the compound, and journaling overload. I'm like, I'm gonna kill this dude. I didn't know what it was, just something moved. And so I took a step just right inside of the breach point or the doorway, and boom, it just it was insane, but it wasn't what I expected
Huh?
because we've had people step on IEDs up to that point, and so you would know about it with the boom and then the screams and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
But in my head and what I could hear, it was just this loud pop, and there was no pain,
Right.
but there was dust and ammonia from the HME everywhere. I couldn't breathe,
Mm.
and I remember thinking like, if I don't get up and get some fresh air, I'm gonna suffocate here. But I can't move.
Mm.
I don't know what the problem is because it doesn't hurt, at this point. And RPG, like what happened? I have no idea. And so people, some of our team members are yelling, from the back, but it's all echoing like a hallway
Mm.
or down a tunnel. I can't quite make out what's going on. And we're talking in minutes here. This is seconds.
Right.
And so as the dust starts to clear a little bit, I calm myself down. I was like, all right, let's figure out what's going on. And I calm myself down. And as the dust clears a little bit, it's that point in the morning where it's like, do I need nods? I can kind of see, but do I need them? Do I not need them? It was at that point in time. And I remember looking down and my boot was at a 90-degree angle to my leg. And I was like, huh, that's kind of weird. Wonder why that is. And so I grab behind my knee and I pick my leg up and my boot flops over and it hits me basically in, the hamstring. And I see these two pearly white objects sticking out of my pants. And so, like, bone should be the color of bone. It's not white. They were glowing in the dark.
Oh.
It was insane. And when it occurred to me that that was my tib and my fib sticking out of my pant legs, that's when the pain hit me. And just excruciating. And I didn't know what to do. I hadn't trained for, like, do I get up and say rub some dirt on it and drink
Mhm.
water and take a knee and face out? Like, what are you supposed to do? And so I just started yelling, I'm hit, I'm hit, I'm hit. And then all of a sudden it was like it, it just became so real because I had just your brain and your mind can't comprehend injuries of that magnitude.
Mhm.
Your brain can't comprehend it. So I'm trying to figure everything out, and I'm trying to get my tourniquet on, and I classic mistake, but we were on a 3-day dismounted until resupply, 3 days. And so I have everything in my assault pack. And what do you think all my pockets are? They're jam full of stuff.
Right.
So I'm trying to put on a tourniquet over all this stuff, and I can't, and I'm losing, and now the shock. And I keep looking down. It's like, don't look down, don't look down. But I keep looking down, and it's like, why is my boot over there? It's like, and and so as all this is unfolding, an ambush kicks off. And so our Overwatch that was across the Helmand River, they started engaging the Taliban fighters that were trying to move to our location because they were trying to close the distance. If
Mhm.
I can close the distance with you, you can't drop bombs on me. And so they're running. And you're hearing Mark 19s and 50 cals and everything going off in the background. But it was just insane because I was laying there and everything seemed like it was in very slow motion. And then all of a sudden, the realization, my teams are the team sergeant that was behind me, still 15 meters, 20 meters behind. He's like, Ryan, we're trying to get to you, but I just wandered into an area that's full of IEDs. You can't run to somebody down there. That's how you get a mass casualty. you have to clear up to them. And that's the reason why you have self-aid and then buddy aid. But I was failing at at self-aid because of all the crap in my pockets and everything like that.
Right.
And so, I keep looking back and they seem to be getting further and further away. And I remember it was that point in time when I laid my head back and I said, I'm going to die here today. And, people can read into it all they want. Oh, so you gave up on yourself. Whatever. Maybe I did. But I said, I'm going to die here today. And then all of a sudden, I was so disgusted with a human being that I was before September 12th, 2010. I was so disgusted with the life that I lived. That old man in a rocking chair, the one that was miserable at the very end?
Mm-hmm.
I was more than miserable. I was disgusted and I hated myself. I had completely destroyed a marriage from being just a child. I had all of these things from my childhood and everything just built up. And so, genie in a bottle, or there's no atheist in a foxhole, right? I laid my head back and I just started praying and asking for forgiveness for the life that I had lived, for the destruction that I've caused, for always being this little boy, not a grown man. And yeah, I just came to this peace. And I remember looking up, and so now aircraft are getting on station, and it's chaotic. And I only know it's chaotic because of my friends that were there told me it was chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
I was still kind of in the twilight zone, but I remember that with everything going on around me, and now it's light, and not a full sun and stuff like that. This is, like I said, when you had your nods and day night, am I good? We're like 10 minutes from I'm good. I don't need nods anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm able to see this unfold, and you can hear everything, the explosions and the rounds and everything in the distance, very close distance, but distance. And I just remember seeing this eagle circling over me. And again, people can say what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's, you claim it's God, but how do you know it was God? I know I saw God that. And this eagle kept circling over me despite all of the chaos that was unfolding in the valley. This eagle kept circling me, and it told me to be calm, relax. You know, you got this, and I got you. Not verbally, obviously. People are going to be like, "Wow, this guy really needs." But that was that's the sensation I got from seeing this bird as everything erupts around it. It just keeps circling me, and that's then, next thing I know, first teammate gets there and slaps me in the face to keep me awake, and then starts going to work. And yeah, that was the first time that in my belief, um, God came and said, and looking
Mm-hmm.
back now, I know exactly what he was saying. He was saying, you are not listening to me. You are not paying attention. You are running your life and everybody around you completely into the ground. I need to wake you up. You are a hard-headed guy that is too stupid to quit. So this is going to have to bring you to the brink. I'm going to have to bring you to the brink of death. And then we're going to get to work. And I know it was the brink of death because I, expired or passed away twice when I got to the first rural facility,
Mm-hmm.
which I did not know that either. Only after what they said. And then I had this note from one of our medics that said, if you're reading this, you're alive. And I didn't realize until years later when I was talking to some of my teammates on the ground, like Kyle Morgan, who carried me. He carried me almost a kilometer to where the helicopters could actually pick us up because nobody could come to where we were at. It was too hot.
Mhm.
And I talked to him and he said, I knew that I put you on the helicopter for your last ride. You were going to die. And that just, that really impacted me a lot because I didn't know about a lot of that until later on, years later. And, because I filed a lot of it away and just kind of that, like, yeah, that sucked, but let's move on with life kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, but it was years later when I found out like how bad the situation actually was. And yeah, majority of the team thought like, yeah, that's Ryan's last flight. To the point to where the people that were receiving me in Tarrant Cout, um,
Mhm.
half of them were told to they were going to be getting a body. Yeah, I didn't know that till later either. I was
Wow.
like, huh, that's a little piece that you know, but yeah, it it was just intense. But through a clear head and after I renewed my relationship with God, it didn't happen after that. It took years after that.
Okay.
But after I'd renewed my relationship with God and now I know, and I have this purpose and what we're doing now and we're helping people, I know that God was sending me a wake-up call. And like I said, he said, you are too dumb to quit. So I'm going to have to make this hurt really, really bad because you're not listening to me. That's my belief on the situation that happened September 12th, 2010.
That's powerful. It's powerful testimony. Um, and so you renew your relationship much later on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and between that point and recovering, you I mean, you went through what you went through with that because you chose the hard path. So you end up
Mm-hmm.
just because the doctors end up giving you an option, which was, hey, we could try to save the leg. There's if we do it, it's only 10 to 15% chance that we
Mm-hmm.
could save the leg. If we do it, it will, we have some, maybe the doctor was ambitious. It was like, it will absolutely change the game for those who are in this similar situation in the future if we can figure this out. Or we could take the leg, great prosthetics. You could just go with that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we go for the save the leg option, all kinds of challenges, all kinds of issues. And again, it's only 10 to 50% chance that we'll save it anyway. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of pain, a lot of surgeries. What do you want to do? And you end up choosing instead of the speed blade, right? You end up saying, no, let's try to save the leg. You're going to take the most uncomfortable, hardest option possible. What was your thinking?
So I had the best orthopedic surgeon probably known to man. And I'm not saying anything against orthopedic surgeons that may listen to this, but Dr. Shu he's the greatest, he's the greatest orthopedic surgeon I know. He's a friend, he's a brother, and he's just a good man.
Okay.
But I'll never forget, he told me, he said, look, Ryan, um, you have this option, and the limb salvage option is going to be tough and it may not even work. Here's your percentage chances. But he said, once that leg's gone, it's gone. We send it, incinerator takes it, and I had a tattoo on my foot. I didn't, it's like, yeah, it's destroyed from the blast, but it still looked cool. And he's like, once it's gone, it's gone. And so it went back to the two old men sitting in their rocking chairs. Will I get to a certain age where I'm going to look back and wish that I at least tried? Because if it doesn't work, it's simple. Boom, chop the leg off, let it heal up, prosthetics, rehab. 6 months later, you're on with your life. Easy.
Mhm.
But if it works, it can help people. It could do a lot for medical technology. And he said, so it's up to you. But you always have the option to cut it off. So let's give it a shot. Like, all right, let's do it. And I went into the limb salvage program with, at that time in 2010, was probably the most destroyed limb that they were going to try and salvage that they've had up to that point.
And you end up going through multiple surgeries, skin grafts, like
Mm-hmm.
all of this. And I mean, there's several points where like you're in rehab. You end up, I mean, again, lots of surgeries, lots of skin grafts, um, to save that leg. You end up going to Brooks Army Medical Center, I think at some
Mm-hmm.
point, and you're in the rehab. You know, you still got the leg. Somehow you know, it's working out somehow. You still have to rehab it. But you're getting to a point where the pain is so immense, even with all the pain pills. You know, it's so uncomfortable, so hard. In the rehab, you're working out, you're trying to make it all happen, but you got to a point where you were like, I can't do it anymore. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just take the damn leg. I can't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yet somehow you you fight through that. You still decide not to take the leg, and you know you fight through that. You fight through all the mood swings with the pain pills. What was the like? What kept you motivated in rehab to keep pushing, to keep working out with the leg? And again, if you read the book, you see exactly like what you're doing. You did start to heal like the Wolverine. That was your nickname at some
Mm-hmm.
point, like because you're healing with these skin grafts. But um, where did you find the where did you find the strength to just not? I mean, at some point, yeah, initially, you're like, yeah, I can help people 10 to 50%. Worst can happen. I'll just cut the leg off. But you got to a point where it's just almost too much for anyone to bear. So what was it like? What was keeping you going?
Goes all the way back to that lesson that we talked about in the beginning. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to give up when I still had options. Pain is pain, and it's horrible.
Uh-huh.
But there was no infection,
Okay.
and there was nothing that was detrimental to my life. And so I didn't want to get to a point in my life where I looked back and I thought, man, you gave up again. Again, going back to Hellwick, remember I was telling you it was one of the greatest lessons I ever learned in my life.
Yeah.
This plays into it as well.
Wow. There you go.
Plays into it as well because I didn't want to look back and be ashamed that I didn't keep going because I was in some pain.
You
And so that that was the biggest thing for me, and because nobody thought it would work. That was pretty big
you
too. But I didn't want to look back and be like, man, I I gave up. I want to at least see if this works. And then if the leg doesn't work for me, it's 3, 4, 5 years down the road, then I can have an amputation. But I want to see this through.
so you all at the same time this is all going on, and you're doing that, that kind of like algebra in your head about, hey, look, the infection is no infection. I mean, I have to bear through the pain. And you end up, again, going back to that seminal moment, which has taught you so much. What's also happening is in your mind, you're taking up a promise that was made to you by, I think, the master sergeant, or the team sergeant. I forgot who it was.
Command Sergeant Major.
Command Sergeant Major said to you, and he might not have even meant it. He might have just been trying to, keep you in a positive mindset. But you were like,
Yeah.
I want to get back I want to get deployed again. I want to go back as a Green Beret. And he's like, man, you're lucky to be alive. But he ends up saying to you before he goes, when he was visiting you, but he ends up saying before he says, well, you know what? If somehow you can rehab this and actually make it out of here with your leg, then okay, you'll get your shot. And so there's that also going. You're trying to
Well, it
pull
went a little
something.
bit. it went a little bit different than that.
Okay.
So when he came in, we're both huge Oregon Ducks fans.
Okay.
And so, but and so that's what started our relationship when I first got the group. He's like, "Where are you from?" Oregon. It's like, "Oh, well, me too." And he's the command sergeant major. Well, when I got injured, he was coming to see me all the time. He's just a good leader. He was
Okay.
always checking on his guys.
Okay.
And along with Admiral Mullen, he gave us a speech before we even left the country to go to Afghanistan. He said, anybody injured or killed, I will personally see to them. And he did. He came and visited every single one of us.
Amazing.
But um, what Command Sergeant Major said to me was this. He's like, Ryan, you need to focus on healing and getting yourself better. You're lucky to be alive right now. But I had the same, I don't know of very many, soldiers, sailors, airmen, or Marines that have been wounded in war that have been like, I'm done. I don't want to go back. I'm finished. I wouldn't blame them if they did, but most of us say, I got to get back to the fight. I
Okay.
got to get back to my team. That's the biggest thing because I felt like I let my team down. I got to get back to my team. And he told me, he said, if you get medically cleared, he said, I'll send you back to war. That's a promise. Years later, we talked, and he's like, dude, there's no way you were going to get medically cleared. Surprise.
But,
But
but
that's what it was. Yeah. And so I had this drive.
huh,
There was a couple things that um, really, gave me a lot of fire to keep going. Number one is I wanted to prove everybody wrong, and I also, you know, I didn't want to give up. Pain or no pain, I didn't want to give up. I was gonna keep pushing. That was number one. But number two was when I was laying there on the ground and the team got to me,
mhm.
we could hear ICOM chatter, and the Taliban were celebrating and
Oh,
playing that stupid music they play for a celebration, and they were laughing about the American they just killed.
ah,
And I was like, okay, you guys bloodied me up, but you didn't beat me. I'll see you soon.
ooh,
And that was my biggest drive. And so, going through rehabilitation and even being medically retired and then getting back onto active duty and going through all of those ups and downs and then having to go through the rehabilitation at seventh group, which was brutal, brutal. It's like return to war, return to fight, whatever it is. People that get hurt, it could be a jump, motorcycle wreck, or injury in combat. You have to go through this extremely physically demanding physical therapy regimen for a couple months until they bless off and they say, yeah, you are going to benefit in ODA, not be a liability. And so, you know, going through all that
mhm.
in March of 2012, I got cleared through everything. And I was on a C-17 heading back to Afghanistan, going to probably the most dangerous place I've ever been. And that was Panjwai District, Kandahar province in 2012. More IEDs I've ever seen in my life. And I just stepped on one.
Yeah, and now that part of the story is, I mean, this, you, you go back again and again and again and again, but on that first go back,
Eight total trips.
yes, man, first of all, you proved everyone wrong. You did it. And on your way into your first mission, on your way back, you're tasked with in Panjwai, you're tasked with clearing a village. You got four, I think you got four Afghans with you, or maybe that's
Mhm.
not, yeah, is it maybe? But you're in there and you realize, like, all of a sudden, like, as you're about to go out and you realize, wait a second, I've just gone through this monumental recovery. I proved everybody wrong. I got to go back out here, and you're with and you're with the company. And even a lot of the guys in the company were like, "You shouldn't be back here, man.
Hmm.
You could be a liability for us." Others were like, "No, no, we're so glad you're back." It's kind of like mixed feelings. Um, but like you're in like another like you're in a position now where like you have to prove yourself all over again.
Hmm.
And you were like, once again, you turned to God,
Hmm.
and you were like, hey, um, I need to have a conversation, right? You looked to God and you said like, um, suddenly it hit you like a ton of bricks. He gave you that confidence, he gave you that peace to kind of go out there and amidst like and it's like back to when that hawk circled above you in the midst of the chaos of war. You
Hmm.
felt him. You felt him. You said, "Steady your heart."
Hmm. That
I,
was the first. That was the first IED I found on that trip back. That's when all that kind of happened. Was
mhm,
um, it. I come across and I get a positive hit on metal content
mhm,
in a break in a mud hut wall. Well, 100% that's an IED. Taliban put it there because people are going to take the path of least resistance,
mhm,
and you're going to step on that IED that's at the break in the wall.
mhm.
And so I come across that first one, and I was just like, God, don't fail me now. I need all the strength I can get because, I mean, I just went through all that pain, 18 months prior to that, and yeah, that's that. Again, you know, my renewing my relationship with God didn't happen necessarily 2010. He opened my eyes.
Mhm.
But I would say it's been the last 4 years that I've really been searching for and doing what I think it is God has planned for me. And the reason why I say I think it is because he hasn't come down, we haven't grabbed a beer together and he laid out this plan for my life. It just doors keep opening for me, and that doesn't just happen. I believe that that's God's hand in things. But at this point in time, I was still, um, really kind of doing my own thing. It's like, thanks God, you got me through that. I'm back. All right, yeah, I'll let you know when I need you. And so, it wasn't it, and so I was still, but that was that moment. That was another moment when I was like, hey, remember that whole thing? I need you. Yeah, give me the strength to do this. And that was one of hundreds we found that trip
Mhm.
alone, because most dangerous place in Afghanistan, in my opinion.
He keeps showing up for you. He keeps showing up for you. He keeps showing up for you. And you so so again, as you they tried to sideline you a few times. I mean, you had that issue where you fell into a sewage trench, and there was the risk. I mean, yeah, I mean, you had so many like it, situations where hey, hold on a second, we need to rehab you here, or actually, this is just going to be an intel. You're just going in as do intel, gather intelligence, or but somehow again, you're driven to be part of the fight, and you keep finding your way back in, back in, back in. Um, which testament to your drive and wanting to be a part of the fight and wanting to be with your teams and wanting to to help. And so i'm I'm gonna and I know you've been very generous with your time, Ryan. So I got a couple more questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have like 20 questions I could be asking you, but I want to be
Well,
respectful.
real quick, that sewage trench, the reason why it was so bad is my skin grafts had opened up on the bottom of my foot and up my leg.
I
And
know.
so I had to get medevaced out for that one.
Yeah, I mean it's
After the mission. After the mission. I didn't
right.
tell anybody before. They were just like, you stink.
Right.
Sorry.
But, but meanwhile, that leg that's still healing and it got
Uh-huh.
grabs, you're taking fire and you got to move out of the way, and you fall into a sewage trench, and like, oh, I'm trying to heal this leg. I somehow
Uh-huh.
made it back where no one thought I could, and now
Yeah.
and now this is gonna undo me, but nothing ever seems to stop you. Nothing ever seems to undo you. Um, but I think there's something else that speaks to your mindset. I want to bring up because again, like you said, you went back 8 times. One of those times, when you go back, I think this was in 2016 now,
Uh-huh.
with Bravo Company in Baghlan province. Um, You and so what began it this is one that it began as an intelligence focused role for you
Hmm.
on what you assumed would be a non-eventful deployment, but
Hmm.
it turned into something far more intense. Um, Starting with so there was so you end up joining a mission. They tap you for a mission,
Hmm.
uh, and um, right, it's I think it's there's what I forgot what was actually happening at the time. Excuse me, but this is where you're going to clear the village of Nizala.
Hmm.
If I'm pronouncing that correctly. And so yeah, so you were tapped to lead a mine clearance team to go into
Hmm.
this village. You've got your
Well,
team of
to
Afghans.
lead to clear for the assaulters. Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and so you start thinking about doing that, going on this mission, and you're like, think about the situation we're in. If we do our job right, we find the IEDs, we're good to go. But more important, others aren't killed, they're not injured. If we do our job, but if we don't do the job right, then lives are lost, blood is shed. On the other
Yeah.
hand, if the assault element was more than 20 meters behind us, that doesn't give them much time to react and save our asses.
Hmm.
So it's a lonely feeling being at the front, with your guys, and this team who's also right there with you. It's not just you; it's these four Afghans, and you guys again are tip of the spear. And you said that there were two guys that really stood out to you on this team of Afghans that you're with in Nizala. It's Abe and Bismillah.
Hmm.
And you said that unlike many of the Afghans who joined the fight for a paycheck, they volunteered for essentially what's the most dangerous job, which is clearing the IEDs, not because they had to, but because those guys wanted to fight alongside U.S. Special Operations Forces. They wanted to fight alongside U.S. Special Forces. They thrived in combat. They run toward danger where a lot of the other Afghans didn't. And when the moment came, Abe kind of lived up to that. He didn't flinch. He charged like straight into enemy fire during an ambush, and he got cut off from you guys and the rest of Bravo Company. But you didn't hesitate. You actually went after him. Um, you know, like you weren't sure if he was dead or if he was alive. But
Hmm.
after you guys got to safety, you were like, I've got to go out and find Abe. And you had to convince your team sergeant, who resisted sending you due to the intensity of the firefight. And the Afghan commandos, they weren't willing to take a risk, not even for their own. But you said, right, like this was, this is where you were coming from. You were like, look, um, U.S. U.S. Combat troops, no one gets left behind, and that's not
Hmm.
just a phrase, right? Like that's a standard. So you went, no matter the danger, you went searching, and eventually you find Abe. He's dead in a ditch. He bled out from a fatal sniper wound, and you reflected. You said, yes, Abe was gone, but we had recovered his body so that his family could give him a proper burial,
Hmm.
a true warrior's funeral. You said that if the Taliban had recovered his body, they would have desecrated it. Instead,
Hmm.
we did right by Abe. As American fighting men and women, we have one belief: we will fight and die for it. No one gets left behind. And you said there
Hmm.
was a scripture that came to mind, which was, John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this to lay down. Sorry, let me say it again. Greater love has no one than this to lay down one's life for one's friends. And he said
Hmm.
that scripture stayed with you, etched in your mind ever since because of Abe. And so my
Hmm.
question for you is that ethos that American combat warriors have, that you have, and that actually you showed not just for your American brothers, but for an Afghan who was fighting alongside you as well, right? Not even part, like not part of not a Green Beret. Um, to leave a brother behind is anathema. Clearly, um, this is something that when the crap hits the fan, is everyone gonna I mean, even your team sergeant, you had to convince, let me go get him. And he's like, no, I can't risk you. I mean, I can't risk losing you. And you're like, no, we can't leave him behind. Is this something, this ethos, is that trained into you? Is that part of the culture such that it's something you learn and that you take to heart? Is it something you have to have in you? What is it about that? Does a soldier need to have that in them already, or is it drilled into you until it becomes who you are?
I think it's both. I think a lot of people that join the military, they join for the service of it.
Hmm.
And so you're already getting this caliber of person that joins the military that they may not know it at the time,
Okay.
but deep down inside, they have that belief that I'm willing to fight and die for the man or woman to the left and to my right. And I will do that to make sure that they get home to their families. And so I believe a lot of the people joining the military, that whether they have that mindset or not, that trait is already there.
Hmm.
And so like with Abe, I mean, there was 4 Afghans we had to find, and this was an 18-hour firefight, and when you're doing men, weapons, and equipment, and you're missing men, I don't care who they are. They were our partner forces. It just so happened, that Abe was my brother, but and that wasn't our first deployment together, but
Hmm.
um, I believe that a lot of the people that choose to go into these jobs in the military, or especially special operations and special forces, they may not know that they have that in them, but that
Hmm.
trait is already there. That I am willing to lay down my life to make sure you go home to your family. Well, in the instance of Abe, um, I was willing to lay down my life to bring him home. We had a good idea he was dead.
Okay.
Um, we couldn't get him on ICOMs, anything like that. But my job and my duty to him, as you know he put his trust into us as Americans, and then into me as the route clearance team leader. He trusted me. Well, another part of that trust is you'll get my body home to my family. And so um I that we had that unspoken promise. He would have done the same for me. I mean, Besmula and Abe saved my life multiple times. but but and it's same with Besmula. Besmula was shot, same sniper,
Hmm.
and he was paralyzed from the waist down. Well, we worked our asses off, and now he lives in Virginia,
Oh, it's
and and
amazing.
and he
That's
has a great life because nobody gets left behind. And I know people are going to listen to this. I got it. The Afghan withdrawal. I'm not going into politics on that.
hmm.
Me personally, with what I can control and what I can do, and a lot of the people that are in the communities that I came from, we have the same belief. I will lay down my life to bring you home because no one gets left behind. And we did right by him that day because his family got his body within 72 hours, and they were able to put him into the ground. And we took care of his family too. But yeah, I I believe that most people that join the military, and pretty much everyone that goes into the special operations community, you have that trait already. It's just, is there going to be a circumstance that's going to come up to where you're going to bring that out of you? And for me, it was simple. I wasn't thinking about the dangers. People can look at it and, oh my gosh, have I heard the reviews? Well, if you died trying to rescue him, then you just put more guys in your team at risk and stuff. I got it. I understand it. I wasn't thinking that way at the time.
Right.
And we did. We enacted a plan. We had 2 Apaches that were going to do gun runs down this road. And we were going to literally, once the second Apache flew over us, we were going to take off sprinting down the road, 500 meters to the last place where the ambush was initially initiated at. We were going to take off down the road because Abe was hit standing right next to me.
Mm.
but he had went to one ditch. Frankie and I went to the other. And then we got caught up in the situation because Frankie and I are, under fire, starting to, bring wounded Afghans. I mean, we think about it. We had 8 Afghan KIA, 12 Afghan WIA, 4 US WIA. I mean, it wasn't the biggest, but it was definitely a significant firefight. And I just, I didn't run blindly in the fire. No, we had
Right.
Apaches that were pretty much, we were doing movement, you know, um, or we were moving under cover of Apaches, under cover of fire. And I don't care who you are, Apaches start doing gun runs, you're putting your head down.
Right.
And and that's, so it wasn't like reckless. I just wasn't leaving anybody behind. And regardless if the Afghans were going to go with us and help us, or a little bit of pushback on the U.S. side, because
Hmm.
of obvious, we can't lose any more guys. We are taking a ton of fire, and their Chechnyan snipers are out here. We've already heard them on ICOM, and they're good.
Yeah.
And so I got it. But this this agonizing grief that I was going through momentarily, that we don't have Abe. We already recovered 2 of the missing 4. Abe
Okay.
was in a ditch with the Afghan commando sergeant major. He was also dead.
Hmm.
And that is just like, we're not leaving anybody behind. And it's the choice that I made on the ground, and I'll go back and I'll make it again and again and again, 1 million times over, because nobody gets left behind.
Amazing. Amazing. Um, so after 22 years, 14 as a Green Beret, multiple combat deployments to Afghanistan, right? Just over and over and over again, keep going back, keep going back. Um, last one, again, during the withdrawal in Afghanistan, 2021. Um, it's finally over, right? 20 some
Mhm.
years in the military. So here's a quote from you. 20 some odd years in the military, Afghanistan was a constant in my life. Now it was over, and all those familiar questions came rushing in. What was it for? What does it all mean? You said suddenly your legs started to hurt. You
Mhm.
know, who is Ryan Hendrickson now? You were asking. What is my purpose now?
Mhm.
Once again, man's search for meaning. And so there's now a new chapter in your life, and and maybe this is the way you've answered that question. Who is Ryan Hendrickson now? What is my purpose? So how did you deal with having to find meaning again? And we can get into now tip of the spear landmine removal.
Mhm. So my identity, after I left the military, I realized that I actually still had no idea who Ryan Hendrickson was. My identity was wrapped up in Ryan Hendrickson, the Green Beret, Ryan Hendrickson that defied all the odds and came back after the injury that I had. Ryan Hendrickson, my identity was made up of things that I thought that I did, and accomplished. And I actually had no idea who I was.
Hmm.
It wasn't Ryan Hendrickson, man of God. It wasn't Ryan Hendrickson that is, you know, um, that is a tool to be used by God to help others. It had nothing to do with it. It was everything that I've done.
Okay.
And now I'm sitting back and it's like, well, now what? I don't even know who I am. This was my entire identity. And I never actually took a second to figure out who I am as a person. I was always just so wrapped up in myself and what I thought I accomplished, to actually figure out who I am. And as the months started going by, I started realizing, you know, I'm I'm a very lonely man, and I don't have an identity. I don't have a purpose. In a way, I was kind of just going left, right, left through life all those years. Even though I was a Green Beret and everything like that, I was just going through the motions of life. I have no identity other than what I think I've done and accomplished. And my failures were still that was part of my identity, even though I can talk a really good game about using your past experiences to make yourself stronger and help other people. This is all new for me over the last 4 years that I've really started to focus on my life and my relationship with God. But February 24th, 2022, when Russia initiated the full-scale invasion of Ukraine,
Mhm.
I remember, like probably a lot of people, I was just glued to my TV watching it unfold and just kind of just wondering how is this possible? Um, and so as the days were going on, I just kept feeling this nagging feeling. I wonder if I could do something to help. And so remember when I was talking about purpose a little bit ago, and I think I'm doing what God wants me to do because he opens all these doors. So I was a DoD contractor at the time, and a threat vulnerability advisor. And, I said, hey, I want to go do this. And they're like, yeah, you're not with this contract. You're not. Okay. And so as the days went on, I get this call from one of my good friends, David Cunningham. He's with his family founded the missionary organization YWAM,
Okay.
and International Missionary Organization. So we're talking about Ukraine because YWAM has a campus in Kyiv. And he said, yeah, a lot of the Ukrainians, a lot of the missionaries have already evacuated, but there's this group of kids. They're like 19, 20, 21, 22 that are just taking all of the vans going around to areas that the Russians are, going to be moving into, or intel had it the Russians were moving to those areas and evacuating women and children. And so I just I just kept thinking, and I was like, I wonder, can I go over there and help in any way? And he's like, they could really use some help, especially from somebody that has some combat experience, not because we're going over there to fight,
Right.
but situational awareness in a combat environment is a lot different than situational awareness in a normal environment. And he was really concerned about these missionary, kids that were running around these suburbs of Kyiv and other areas, evacuating people out of them. He was really worried that they were going to get themselves killed because at that point in the war, there were no battle lines. It was blurred. You could run across a Russian column like that and have no idea. They're passing one way on the road. You guys are going the other way. There's videos of it all the time.
Wow.
And so, and so we, and so I decided, I was like, I don't know if this is the right choice, but I'm going to do it. And I quit my job, and in the middle of March, I started making my way to Ukraine. March of 22, I started making my way to Ukraine to go over and to help this missionary group. And, I didn't know what I was getting into, but I was strangely comfortable with it because of all the training we had, it, as special forces. It was kind of an environment that I felt comfortable with. Like one of the safe houses we got to the second night I was in Ukraine, as we were making our way to Kyiv, there was a whole bunch of refugees in there, and some of them spoke English, and we're just talking, and they're telling me about all these horrors and these horrible things that were happening in the areas that they were evacuating west to get away from, and I was moving east to go into. And I just felt so at peace and comfortable with what I was doing. It's not because I'm this great humanitarian or this hardened combat veteran. No. It's God saying, in my opinion, that's God saying, hey, yep, this is what we're going to do. I
Wow.
got you.
Wow.
And so, I link up with this missionary group. We start in day one. I'm driving a van. We're going to this area, and you have explosions on the outskirts of it and stuff like that. And there's these collection points where you getting all these women and children. They're saying goodbyes to their husbands because the husbands are now mobilized. They can't leave, and they're being handed AKs, and it's like, hey, defend. And we're evacuating women and children and the elderly and getting them to different hubs in Kyiv. And then from Kyiv, they're shipped out of country to bordering countries, Poland, Romania, Hungary, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And so, I just felt like there was no nervousness. There was no, oh man, what did I get myself into? None of that, because I finally, for once in my life, I was like, I have a purpose.
Wow.
And it was so rewarding. Well, then the landmine removal aspect came in, because as the Russians started to do their withdrawal to the east, civilians started to come back to their homes and their villages to see what's left. I got to rebuild my life again. And they started to hit landmines and get injured from unexploded ordnance and stuff like that, because they didn't understand it. Ukraine isn't a country that's always been at war. I mean, yeah, in World War II,
Hmm.
but that generation had all gone. And now you have this new generation that had no idea about landmines. Like, don't drive down that road, man. Well, why not? I used to drive down it all the time. Boom. That's why. And so Ukraine's answer for it was to take these territory defense units, which territory defense is like neighborhood watch, but with PKMs, RPGs, and stuff like that.
Right.
And now it's like, hey, territory defense is, this is your village, this is your district that you were here to defend. Now we need you guys also to start cleaning things up. And so I found these groups of deminers or sappers that were like, I've never done this before in my life. I've just been told, hey, we're doing this. And so I started to help them out just with lessons learned that I had from Afghanistan, and then from training them up and helping them on the minefields to, hey, we need equipment, we need detectors, we need
Right.
safety equipment and stuff like that. Okay, hey, I'm going to go home, raise some money, I'll come back. And people were opening up their hearts at that time, and I would buy thousands of dollars worth of equipment, fly straight back over, link back up with the teams, equip them with stuff, make sure everybody was good, work with them for a bit, and then move on to the next team that had no idea what was going
Mm.
on. And so all of a sudden, I'm doing the Green Beret job again, right? Train,
Right.
advise, assist,
You're
force,
back.
multiply. And I sat back after my first trip as a deminer. So my second trip to Ukraine, but first trip demining. And I sat back and I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going, I God has opened so many doors for me, or so many doors have been opened. Coincidence, but no, in my belief, God has opened so many doors for me. I think this is what He wants me to do. And so, for 9 trips now, we're getting ready to go on number 10 in March,
Right.
but for 9 trips back and forth to Ukraine, we've been bringing over equipment, training up units on it, and then working with them until, okay, we're good. We just force multiplied. Now here's a new need. Okay, go back, fundraise again, get all the equipment and everything we need, and rinse and repeat. And the fulfillment that I have got from doing this job, where it's just humanitarian work. I'm not a combatant. We have nothing to do with the combat operations in Ukraine. It is
Hmm.
all for the innocent that are caught in the middle. And but the fulfillment and this job, I understand it deeply because of September 12th, 2010. And so now all of a sudden, everything is starting to come, full circle, that I can see in my life, from my childhood um, to having that eye-opening, situation in Hell Week, to doors opening up to become a Green Beret, to God opening my eyes and putting me back on track September 12th, 2010, all the way up to what I'm doing now. Um, I'm kind of seeing, well, not kind of, I'm seeing God's hands working in everything I'm doing. And yeah, it's been a long road, but over the last 4 years, basically since I retired and I was looking for that identity, and I realized I still was pushing God to the side because it wasn't convenient for me. Um, Now, I've really tried to not only renew my relationship with God, but to figure out, what do you want me to do? Like, I'm listening now. I'm sorry 2010, happened, what is it, 15 years ago? But, you know, now I'm listening. what do you want me to do? Use me for what you need me to do. And again, I mean, we don't go to the bar, have a beer, and talk about it. So I think I'm doing what God is asking me to do because doors keep opening up. And is it hard? Oh, it's hard. Have we struggled as an NGO? Yeah, yeah. I mean, watch the news and people have all their own opinions about Ukraine, and it's like, well, it's great. You can think whatever you want, but we're there for the innocent people that don't have a choice because landmines don't care. Landmines don't care about politics, race, religion, sex, any of that. Landmines kill indiscriminately. And that's why we're there. And the biggest reason why I'm there is for someone to say, why do you do this? And then I can tell them my story and how God has led me to this point in my life. So, oh, there's just another one of those religious guys or something like that. It's like, you have no idea who I was and who I still am. I'm still a human being. I fall flat on my face all the time. That's life. How boring would life be if you never fell flat on your face,
Mhm.
right? So that's
Wow.
that's what
Wow.
that's what my mission is now, is to show the work that God has done in my life, not through words, but through my actions. At least I try best I can. So
Well, man, just impactful, powerful insights and so much inspiration. Um, it's just to truly see someone find their purpose and that purpose being one that doesn't just satisfy them, but makes an impact on so many others. That's again, and also your connection with the Most High, with God,
mhm.
and how he's always been there for you and he continues to open doors for you. God bless you, Ryan. God bless you. Where can our audience find you if they want to learn more about what you're up to and what you're doing?
Yeah. So landmineremoval.org. That has everything from social media to I think you can even I think there's even a link for copies of the book there. If
Awesome.
not, the book's on Amazon. It's super easy. But yeah, landmineremoval.org is basically where you can start at, and you can, follow along, hit me up on, whatever social media platform there is, because when people donate to us, I feel an obligation to those donors that they need to know what we're doing. So I'm very, very transparent online with everything we do, our work in Ukraine, everything, because I believe that people need to have that transparency if they're going to trust their donations to you. They should know what the donations are doing. And so that's the reason why I'm so visible online, is because I owe that to the donors. They deserve to know what's going on with their donations. And so if you want to know about anything, it's online. I promise that.
Amazing.
But landmineremoval.org is a good place to start. It has links to everything.
Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. God bless you, Ryan.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
God bless you. It's been an amazing discussion. Um, Phenomenal. Alpha Human Podcast. Ryan Hendrickson. We're out.